Hello, everybody. Excited utterance here. My name's Hella, and am I hella mad? I think I might be hella mad today. Maybe I'm hella mad today because I've been doing some digging. Some digging. And I started digging, and I found something I wasn't expecting. Yep. I went digging, and I just typed in the words friend Gull. Friend Gull, Franny Gull, our favourite judgy judge over in Indiana. And it didn't take long before I found something that made me hella mad. Yep. And oddly, this one wasn't really to do with Richard Allen, but the timing of it made me wonder, gee, you had a great December last year, didn't you, Franco? Because not only did you sentence an innocent man to 130 years in prison, something he didn't do, but you also were quite pleased to see one of your defendants, who stood in front of you many, many times over the course of decades, go behind some closed doors, no media present, because in Indiana, this all happens behind closed doors. Everything happens behind closed doors in Indiana, and get unalived by the state. Yep, first time in 15 years. And that was somebody who you could have saved. Judge Gull, yes, you had the opportunity to save him because his death penalty was vacated and it went back to you. Yes, Judge Gull, but you went, yeah, nah, I think I'll let the state kill you. So we're going to talk about that. So 2 days between those two things that happened. Everybody? Yep. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to say hello to some people. Calm down my hella madness for just a moment. Hi, Anna Malcolmson. Oh, it's good to see you. I saw you hanging about in my Discord. Dally in my Discord. Nice to have you. Glad that you're a member. Let me know if you're having any trouble getting in. Can make sure that you're not having any trouble. Ma is here, half Irish, saving me from KR Jr. interview that was making me hella mad. Yep, fair enough. Gull doesn't think mental illness is real. Ha, yes. Okay, so this is part of it. So this man has been found to be mentally incompetent 5 times by 5 separate specialists. He is schizophrenic, yet Judge Gull and many other people in the Indiana establishment seem to think it's fine to kill him. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. Yes, free Zachariah as well. Digging? Have you ever dug a hole? Hello, Doug. How are you? Hey, Skinny. How are you, Skinny? Good to see you. We just need a hella talk. No, we don't, Mavka. No, we don't. You're going to have to pay me 1,000 gifted memberships for me to change my name to Hella Talk. Just letting you know. Christine Beck is here. Hi. Hi, KO. Nice to spend some time with you in chat. Oh, yeah. And you're saying hi to Catastrophe. Catastrophe is here. I know. I saw her. John is here. Hello. Mavka, I really wasn't very late. No. Hello. Cat. Damn, the Corcoran record is chock full of Gull's demeaning commentary. Yes, it is. So you're familiar with this, Cat, I can tell. We're going to have a bit of a look into it today. Obviously, it's a long record. It's been going back to the late 90s. But Francis Gull had the opportunity to reverse his death penalty, and she didn't. Hey, Skinny. Spicy Hot Pocket is here. And Shami, you made it. That's awesome. Hey, Donnie Pitbull Kuntz. Did I say that right? Scott is here. Hey, Scott. Good to see you. And Melissa Simrock, my favorite. The Hella alarm is set. Bing! And I think I saw Nicola Maxwell. Hey, Nicola. And the Court of Public Opinion. I saw you over in Brunker's chat earlier. Good choice. Good choice. Andrew Brunker is a good old mate of mine. Hammy's here. Hello. Hey, Hammy. And Judge Jessica, she's a soulless ghoul. Yes, she is. All right, let's get into it. So, it really got me, the timing of all this. But I will say flat out to all of you guys, I'm big time against the death penalty. But even if you are someone who supports the death penalty, I fully respect your opinion. But let me just talk about that for a moment. Even if you are behind the death penalty, you surely must agree that it's not very efficient. So I think the shortest time between a death penalty being handed down and it actually being carried out in the US was 6 years. And that was because the defendant begged to be put to death. He begged for that time to be shortened. But generally it takes much, much longer than that. There's always appeals process in between that's mandatory for them to be appeals processes in between. Not just that, but it costs the state a lot more to seek the death penalty purely because of the fact that the trial process is expanded, right? So there is the need for mitigation. So mitigation experts have to come in and assess the defendant. There is greater need for due process, as there should be, because the stakes are higher. So a lot of people just don't understand how there's so much more involved in the state seeking the death penalty. It's not just a matter of, oh, let's put the person to death and it's done and boom, he's gone. It doesn't work like that. And then usually people are on death row for a really, really long time. And then by the time they are actually executed, then people complain because it took so long and it was such a waste of government money. So even if you are in support of the death penalty, there's a lot of reasons to consider that maybe it's not the best way to go, because if you had just gone after life without parole, the whole process would have been far more streamlined and you would end up with pretty much the same result, because by the time the person ends up walking towards their death, they're almost dead anyway. It's pretty close. Anyway, so there's that. Skinny, no one eats my lunch. Well, we can try. Hey, Rockstar, good to see you. Justice Smith, I'm hella late and burning with rage. Okay, too many wrong, and then there's the other thing. There's too many wrongful convictions, right? So even if you think that the death penalty is a good idea, you've got to think about the fact that you need to be so 120% sure that you got the right person. What if you're wrong? There's no going back, right? So isn't it interesting that the state didn't seek the death penalty in the Richard Allen case? Have you thought about that? Why do you think they didn't seek the death penalty? Do you think maybe it was because they weren't so confident that they would have gotten that through the jury? They weren't so confident in their case? I think so. I think that's why. What that Gary Gilmore? I don't know about Gary Gilmore. I'll have to look that up. Death penalty also means the public defender has to be qualified for DP. Yes, that's a really good one. Also raising the cost, but providing the defendant with best available public defense. Yes, just like in the Brian Koberger case, and people complain about the fact that he's got such a big budget, I guess, for public defense and for experts and resources and things. Well, of course he does. His life's on the line. And then they go, oh, why is this taking so long? It's a death penalty case. I highly recommend some excellent reading by my good mate Steve Gosney, death penalty qualified defense attorney. In Florida, he has written the book Death Penalty Designs, and it's a good read, and it really helps you to get a grasp of how the whole process of going to trial changes once the state seeks the death penalty. Blind Hog, searching for Acorn. Hello. Many pro-death penalty advocates want those appeal and constitutional safeguards removed. Of course they do. Of course they do, because they just rather it was just done. That those people just were put towards a firing squad or led straight towards the chair or whatever it is. But wait till one of their family ends up wrongfully accused and convicted. Okay. And yes, it affects jury selection as well. So there's another argument about whether or not juries should have anything to do with sentencing to death. So should juries be the ones who decide if someone is sentenced to death? Should they just be the ones who decide on guilt? Because if you're going to have a jury who already has it in their head that this person may be someone that they end up putting to death, then they're predisposed to guilt. Germany outlawed the death penalty after World War II for a reason. The state's monopoly on violence is a slippery slope. Oh yeah, you hella mad too, DP? So am I. You have to be in support of death penalty to be on a death penalty jury, right? Yeah, absolutely. You have to be willing to put that person to death. So yes. Yes, you can't be like me, like completely against the death penalty. I would not be allowed on a death penalty jury. No. Apart from the fact I'm from Australia and we don't have the death penalty here. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at what's happened. Hey, Rachel from Idaho, how's it going? Cool. So this is what I discovered. So I went looking, and I was actually looking for something else on Judge Gull, but I found this, and it stopped me in my tracks, and I was like, whoa, let me see what that is. Hey, Fig Fairy. Let me see what that is. So I'll show you. Not that, that's just my thumbnail. No mercy, bitches! Okay, so, funny. This all happened within 2 days of one another. So we all know about on December 20, 2024, she sentenced Mr. Allen to 130 years. But on December 18, 2024, did you know that that guy down in the bottom right-hand corner, he was executed. And that was one of her defendants. Yes, it was. So there he is down there. That's Joseph Corcoran. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that's his name. Okay, so who was Joseph Corcoran? So, he was born in 1975. He's considered a mass murderer because he murdered more than 3 people, so 4 people. And he was from Indiana. He was executed December 18, 2024. He was found guilty of murdering his brother, his sister's fiance, and 2 of their friends in 1997 at his house in Fort Wayne, and he was sentenced to death in 1999. Right, so get this, and this continues to be something that people always say about this guy, is that he was previously charged with the murder of his parents in 1992 when he was nearly 17. Now, I bolded this, he was acquitted of those charges, yet, no matter what, when people talk about this guy, they say, oh, but he killed his parents. He was acquitted of those charges. A jury could not find enough evidence to find him guilty. Weird, the 90s, hey. Right? These days, you just have to cough. Prosecutor just has to cough and jury will find someone guilty. Anyway, he became the first person in Indiana to be executed after a 15-year moratorium on executions in the state. There was a moratorium, right? So, a lot of people are all like, why did it take so long for him to be executed? Why have there been no executions? Well, there's been a moratorium on executions, so it's not just because people were being nice to him. So, oops, hang on, I'm going to go back. Let's just have a little bit more of a look at this. Oops. Let's have a little quick look at a news story, and this was just recently.
Wayne is dead. His execution was carried out early this morning.
Now, Corcoran was convicted and sentenced to death for the 1997 murders of his brother, his sister's fiance, and 2 of their friends. And according to court records, Corcoran shot all 4 with a rifle. He said he was stressed because his sister was going to have to move out of their shared Fort Wayne home, and he heard the 4 talking about him.
Yeah, I covered this story when it happened. You know, he got into the police car. It was just so surreal at the time. Fox 59's Kit Hanley has more on his final words and also what lawmakers are saying this morning. Kit?
Yeah, Lindy and Scott, when asked the question, do you have any last words? We're told that Joseph Corcoran replied, not really, let's get this over with. According to the Indiana Department of Correction, the execution process started shortly after midnight Central Time, and he was pronounced dead at 12:44 this morning in Michigan City, Indiana. Corcoran was 49 years old, and he had been on death row since 1999. Now, this marks the state's first death row inmate to be executed since 2009. Lawmakers, faith leaders from all over the state, and his defense attorneys were hoping the Governor Holcomb would step in to stop Corcoran's execution. The groups wrote to the governor urging him to put an end to all death sentences in Indiana. Now, we didn't hear from the governor prior to Corcoran's execution, but we're hearing from him now. In a statement he wrote earlier this morning, he says, quote, Joseph Corcoran's case has been reviewed repeatedly over the last 25 years, including 7 times by the Indiana Supreme Court and 3 times by the U.S. Supreme Court, the most recent of which was tonight. His sentence has never been overturned and was carried out as ordered by the court. Now, we're also hearing from Attorney General Todd Rokita, who says, in part, Joseph Corcoran's case worked its way through our judicial system, and today he finally paid his debt to society as justice was provided to his victims. Now, while jailed, Corcoran reportedly bragged about killing his parents in 1992 as well. He was initially charged in their killings, but he was ultimately acquitted. The IDOC confirmed that Corcoran requested Ben & Jerry's ice cream for his last meal. 7 prisoners remain on death row in Indiana. For now, reporting in the studio, Kit Hanley, Fox 59.
Okay, so don't you love how they throw in a little bit of jailhouse hearsay about how he bragged about killing his parents? Now, Ange, hey, how are you, mate? Yes, they executed a very, very sick man, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, because, yes, he was super sick, schizophrenic, incredibly ill, had all these visions and hallucinations, and had been ever since his childhood. Interestingly, he actually went, and there was a child in the house when he murdered the 4 people. He went and made sure that the child was safe before he went and did the deed. He had that forethought, and I think that the judge and the jury at the time saw that as being some sort of premeditation that worked against him. That's so sad. Like, because he had some sort of cognitive ability. Yeah. Losers. Yeah, they don't believe in mental illness. Yeah, he removed a little girl. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Moving on. Let's go back to where we were. Now, how could Gull have saved him? Now, this is interesting because this is the reason why I thought you guys might consider how this woman, if you want to call her that, this woman erred. In my opinion, she could have done something about this, right? She could have actually done something about this. So, in December 2000. Now you can imagine along the way there's this moratorium going on, and his lawyers are fighting for his life. He's too crazed to really do anything about it. He's just like, he's going so nuts in there. He pretty much has resigned himself to the fact that he's going to die, right? But his lawyers think that he is too mentally incompetent to be executed and something should be done about it. And they keep putting in appeals on his behalf, right? So this has been going on. So we're at 2000 now. This has been going on since, so that's 2000. Keeps going on 1997 for a few years. And it continued to go on up until 2020, 2021, etc. But back in 2000, this happened. Supreme Court orders new sentencing. The Indiana Supreme Court vacated a convicted quadruple killer's death sentence Wednesday. They vacated the sentence and ordered a judge to reconsider whether the man should die for the crimes. Allen Superior Court Judge Francis Gull can still impose a death sentence for Joseph Corcoran, but must enter a new sentencing statement based only on mitigating and proper aggravating circumstances. Corcoran was sentenced to die for the July 1997 shooting deaths of Douglas A. Stilwell, 30, James Corcoran, 30, Robert Scott Turner, 32, and Timothy G. Bricker, 30. The men were killed at the Fort Wayne home Joseph Corcoran shared with his brother James and his sister Kelly Nito. Turner was Nito's fiancée. In her oral remarks at the time of sentencing, Gull said in part, "I am convinced in my heart of hearts." Does she have a heart? "Mr. Corcoran, if given the opportunity, you will murder again." Corcoran's attorneys said the passage demonstrated that Gull considered future dangerousness in determining the sentence. That is not one of the aggravating circumstances permitted under Indiana's death penalty statute. Interesting, right? So she can only use the aggravating circumstances, so therefore statutory aggravating circumstances, not non-statutory. So nothing that's not in the statute. The High Court ordered Gull to redetermine from evidence already presented whether to impose the death penalty, life without parole, or a term of years, and to issue a new sentencing statement. So they went, okay, Gull, we're vacating that sentence, go away, and decide again. So she could have gone, okay, life without parole. She could have, all the way back then in 2000. What do you think she did? Hey, woman. Woman. Surprise, surprise. I don't know why it took till 2002. But, surprise, surprise, court upholds death sentence. Oh, wow! Fancy that! Imagine that. Court upholds death sentence. So, after a second review, the Indiana Supreme Court upheld the death sentence Thursday for a man convicted of killing 4 men in Fort Wayne. The High Court originally vacated the death sentence for Joseph E. Corcoran and ordered Allen Superior Court Judge Francis Gull to reconsider whether he should die for his crimes. In December 2000, Gull released an order that left the death sentence intact. She did do it in 2000. Gull released an order that left the death sentence intact back in 2000. It then went back, obviously, to the Supreme Court, and then they upheld it again. See, it went back and forth for years and years. But she, in 2000, left it intact. So she ruled back in 2000 when she was given it. Remember, it was vacated. And she went, yeah, no. As we say in Australia, yeah, no. She left it intact, but explained in more detail the factors she weighed in imposing the sentence. The Supreme Court said Thursday it was satisfied with the reasoning. So she explained it well enough at this point. Back then, she used to explain stuff. She gave up now. Back then, she did. Corcoran was sentenced to die for the July 97 shootings of those people, Douglas, James, Robert, and Timothy. The men were killed at the Fort Wayne home Joseph Corcoran shared with his brother, James, and his sister, Kelly. Turner was Nito's fiance. Okay, so she explained it in greater detail, and this time she used the statutory aggravators, not the non-statutory aggravators. Yeah, Brooke, that's what I was getting at. I can't imagine her actually explaining anything. But this was 25 years ago, right? So back then, she explained stuff. But remember, the Supreme Court told her she had to explain it. They went, nah, you didn't explain it well enough. And we're vacating the death sentence. So if you want him to die, then you're going to have to explain it a bit better. And she's like, oh, okay. I guess I'll explain it a bit better then. And she went, oh, well, I want him to die. So I better make sure I come up with a good explanation. She just changed her wording, but her reasoning was the same. Yeah. Okay. So if this was all lawful, what's the problem, you might ask, right? Now, you guys in chat, you seem to get it, right? But there'll be people who watch this and they'll get in the comments and stuff and they'll go, hey, this went through all the court systems, it's all lawful, he got the death penalty, what you whining about, you Aussie? What you whining about? Well, this is what I'm whining about. This. Hang on. This is what I'm whining about. So Indiana's first execution in 15 years raises serious constitutional concerns. This is what I'm whining about. I'm going to whine. I'll whine if I want. I whine if I want to. Okay. And we seem to have this come up a lot, don't we? So this thing about secrecy and constitutional concerns in Indiana, right? I like this graphic, by the way. I'm a designer. I like this graphic. Execution order is given for a killer of 4. Okay, so if Joseph Corcoran had been sentenced to death just a few miles to the east, across the border in Ohio, instead of Fort Wayne, Indiana, it's likely that a court would have barred his execution. Isn't that interesting? Ohio law prevents a person with a serious mental illness, SMI, at the time of their crime, defined as schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, or delusional disorder, from being put to death. There you go. Mr. Corcoran, who has a long history of paranoid schizophrenia, diagnosed by at least 5 different doctors, volunteered for execution, and believes that prison guards are torturing him. Oh, hang on. Hey, that sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? With an ultrasound machine? Oh, that doesn't sound familiar. But Indiana has no SMI law, and Mr. Corcoran is scheduled for execution before sunrise on Wednesday, December 18. I think this was written on December 17. The state's first execution in 15 years. Unlike all other active death penalty states, journalists will not be allowed to observe. Look at that. Indiana's effort to restart executions has provoked serious concerns about Mr. Corcoran's mental competency, his right to have a spiritual advisor present in the death chamber, and the state's lack of transparency. Ha! Spiritual groups, victims' family members, and the original prosecutor in the case all favor stopping Corcoran's execution. What? What? The victims' family members? They wanted the execution stopped. They wanted the execution stopped. What is going on? Right? Are you serious? Even the original prosecutor wanted it stopped. Someone give him a medal. The torture that is not real. Evidence of Mr. Corcoran's serious mental illness dates to his early childhood, including self-isolation, self-harm, and extreme paranoia. At age 22 in 1997, he shot his brother, his sister's fiancé, and 2 friends after overhearing the men talking about him. He immediately admitted guilt and asked a neighbor to call the police. Before trial, he rejected a plea deal, saying he would only agree if the state would sever his vocal cords first, because his involuntary speech allowed others to know his innermost thoughts. Man, if that's not a crazy person, I don't know what is. 5 doctors would diagnose him with schizophrenia, concluded that he was incompetent to stand trial or waive his appeals, but court permitted him to do both, even as they acknowledged his delusions. That is shit. Indiana, what are you doing? You're killing sick people. Also, everyone's really happy just to go out there and say, oh, he killed his parents. Let's assume he did, because people seem to be happy just to assume he did. Right? Let's assume he did. At that point, wouldn't the authorities have stepped in and taken him into a mental facility? Because 4 people's lives might have gotten saved at that point, and maybe even a 5th person, as in himself, because he would have got treatment. Right? But no, nothing was done. He was acquitted and just put back into society. He's literally screaming for help. This dude, he's not denying it at all. He's saying, cut my vocal cords because people can hear my innermost thoughts. Yeah, and woman, you're right. She needed a pound of flesh for trial. This is exactly the same as what's happened with Rick. Here we had somebody who had far more evidence against him, as in Ron, but he was dead. Right? So it wasn't good enough to have a dead man. A dead man can't go to trial. You can't have a pound of flesh out of him. Also, question as to whether he was perfectly good to go to trial, because, someone was protecting him. Honor bound. Honor bound. Hey, Johnny Deputy. Humans can't be trusted with such important decisions, in my opinion. Well, and this is actually why I'm against the death penalty. I don't believe that any human has a right to take another person's life. It's exactly the same argument as why we don't abide murder. Hey, Chinny. What juror interview? What do you mean new juror interview? What case? What are you talking about? If you're talking about KR, I don't care. I stay away from that. And hello, Devil Angels boss. Nice to see ya. Yep. We stayed the hell away from that one. Yeah. No, I haven't seen it and I don't care. Okay. Corcoran is under the paranoid delusion that prison guards are torturing him with sound waves. As a result, Corcoran wants the state to execute him in order to end the pain. I am not willing to accommodate him. Indiana Supreme Court Justice Robert D. Rucker, dissenting from a decision allowing Mr. Corcoran to waive his appeals, 2005. What a decent dude. I am not willing to accommodate him. Word. See? Like, there are some decent people in the world. Yeah, love dissenters. Dissenters rock. Hey, I'm bronzed. KR was your gateway trial. I feel sorry for you. But the other four Supreme Justice Court judges disagree. Well, they sucked. Yeah. To determine whether a person is competent to be executed, imagine that. Imagine someone doing a test on you to see if you're competent to be executed. Excuse me, sir, are you competent to be executed? Courts are asked only whether the person has a rational understanding of their punishment, a low standard open to interpretation that has resulted in the execution of many people with evidence of severe mental illness. Yes. So when a mentally ill death sentenced prisoner seeks to waive appeals and volunteer for execution, pick me! Courts might not even conduct a competency hearing because Indiana law requires the prisoner's approval for any filings challenging an execution. Okay. For this exact reason, Mr. Corcoran is scheduled for an execution based on a competency determination from 20 years ago in a written piece of writing titled Electronic Harassment, a Whistleblower Report. Mr. Corcoran describes his belief that the Indiana State Prison uses a secret ultrasound machine to control his thoughts and sleep. But no court has held a hearing on that evidence. The Indiana Supreme Court ruled by a 3-2 vote on December 5 that his defense attorney's petitions for a competency hearing could not be considered because Mr. Corcoran did not authorize any efforts to delay his execution. Come on now. Surely someone should be able to speak on his behalf. Like if 5 separate doctors have said that he has paranoid schizophrenia, surely his defense attorneys can act on his behalf. Surely. Brooke J, this is some wild shit. This is some fucking wild shit. Well, they do control the lighting. Yes, they do. He's not wrong about that. Absolutely not. This sounds like a death penalty argument, not an argument about the facts at hand in Corcoran's case. No, yeah, you're right. But what's wrong with that, Scott? Hey, Kel. Mr. Corcoran lacks any rational understanding of his impending execution. He simply wants to expedite the ending of the torture that is not real. Yes, but the state can't be party to that, right? Like he seems to be suicidal, but the state can't help him commit suicide. Like if he's if he's not well, he needs to have treatment. And then once he's competent, then you assess it. Peace. Devil Angels boss, Steve. Hey, Deb's in space. Yeah, Scott, okay, I see what you're saying. So nothing's wrong with it. Have the discussion in the political arena and change the law. Okay, so what you're saying is the law's the law and they're just carrying out the law. And unfortunately, that is the law in Indiana. Everything that's been done is lawful. I see what you're saying. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. The law should be changed. The law should be changed. Why the hell in Indiana is it okay to execute someone who is not mentally competent? Why? Why? And Judge Gull did have the opportunity to remove this death penalty. She did. Yeah, they can choose not to. They don't have to. In dissent, Indiana Supreme Court Justice Christopher Goss, joined by Chief Justice Loretta Rush, argued that the court should have stayed Mr. Corcoran's execution and ordered a psychiatric examination to comply with constitutional requirements for competency. Hey, that's what I just said. To ignore these findings now and proceed with execution without a current competency evaluation amounts to enabling his delusions, a state-sanctioned escape from suffering rather than a measured act of justice. Justice Goff wrote. Justice Goff raised further concerns about the ability to waive appeals or allowing a person to volunteer for execution, whether by choosing to withhold mitigating evidence at sentencing, waiving the right to appellate review, or electing not to seek post-conviction relief, threatens to undermine the state's heightened reliability interest in death penalty cases, and ultimately threatens to diminish public confidence in the integrity of the judicial system, he wrote. These comments echo Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall's warning in 1979. Ooh, what did he say? Soon after the first executions in the modern era of the death penalty were conducted, mostly of volunteers, that society's independent stake in enforcement of the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment cannot be overridden by defendant's purported waiver. Let me think about that. Society's independent stake in enforcement of the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. Okay, so obviously, cruel and unusual punishment, bad. It can't be overridden by the defendant's purported waiver. So if the defendant goes, just kill me now, that's not overridden by the prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. So if it's cruel and unusual punishment to kill somebody who is mentally unfit to make that decision, it doesn't matter that they say, please kill me, because they can't make that decision. It's a very, long-winded legal way to say it. Hey, free Ricky Bay. And Mickey's headphones, how are you? Justice Marshall called the volunteer process nothing less than state-administered suicide. Hey, didn't I say that too? A recent DPI analysis found that 87% of volunteers, I love the way they're saying volunteers, like me, have known mental illness or substance abuse issues. Well, I mean, okay, I could have guessed that. How many sane people are going to go, please kill me? and the rate of volunteering for execution is 10 times higher than the suicide rate for the general public, but nearly identical to the rate of suicide on death row. Hang on. The rate of volunteering for execution is 10 times higher than the suicide rate for the general public. Well, funny that, because they're in prison in Indiana. I don't know whether this is just Indiana or not. Well, they're in prison on death row. It's gotta suck. But you know, it's prison. There's an adjustment. People adjust. On December 17, the Seventh Circuit of Appeals denied Mr. Corcoran a stay of execution in a 2-1 decision. Wow, only 3 people. I suppose it's Court of Appeals. 2-1, wow. Imagine being the one. In dissent, Judge John Z. Lee wrote the court was wrong to assume Mr. Corcoran's competence for execution based on a 2-decade-old determination of competence to waive appeals, which had used a different standard. Judge Lee wrote that the record contains undisputed and extensive expert evidence of Corcoran's paranoid schizophrenia and resultant pervasive delusions from which he has long suffered. When asked if Mr. Corcoran is mentally ill, Governor Eric Holcomb acknowledged that he is, but did not say whether he would grant clemency on that basis. Spoiler alert, he didn't. I will reserve my final judgment until every step, every legal recourse and step has been exhausted, he said. Yeah, right. There is no penalty more severe, more irrevocable than death. So, when reviewing cases imposing this penalty, justice demands no haste but precision and care. Guaranteeing this demand constitutionally requires ensuring a prisoner is competent to be executed. Indiana Supreme Court Justice Christopher Goff dissenting, another dissenter, dissenting from the court's denial of a stay of execution, 2024. Good on you, mate. I like you. What edge? I want a prison dog, or else I'm making everyone in here's life a nightmare. Sure, have one. Can I watch Hella and talk to DB and the Crank family? No. Okay. Let this show on the road. Let's get the show on the road. A hostility towards religion. Oh, what's this? So the Indiana Department of Corrections, IDOC, initially denied Mr. Corcoran's request for a spiritual advisor in the execution chamber, but reversed course on December 12 after Mr. Corcoran's attorneys filed a federal lawsuit arguing that the decision displayed a hostility towards religion. IDOC will now allow Reverend David Lietzel, who has known Mr. Corcoran since he was 12 years old, to pray with him in the execution chamber and have limited physical contact, such as holding his hand. Well, that's nice. In initially denying the request, IDOC Chief Legal Officer Anna Quick had argued that IDOC takes the anonymity of our staff very seriously and will not permit an outside person in the death chamber. What? Oh my God. It was a priest. She was worried about a priest doxing them? Are you for real? Anna Quick? Are you for real, Anna Quick? A priest who's known him since he was 12, so it's an old priest. She was worried about letting an old priest in. But defense attorneys responded that every other state that actively carries out executions as a policy allows spiritual advisors to be present, physically touch, and talk quietly with their spiritual charge as they are dying. God damn it. How just completely insane is it to not allow a damn priest in? Like, how inhuman are you people? Fucking hell. Fuck you. Sorry. Jesus Christ. Saint Doxa. Priest of what denomination? I don't know, I just said priest. But it's a reverend, so what denomination is reverend? It's like Anglican. You can't deny a religious figure before your execution. No! They argue that IDOC's policy would prohibit Mr. Corcoran's free exercise of Christian faith in the crucial moments leading to his passage to the afterlife. The same day the IDOC announced Reverend Lietzel could be present in the chamber, 70 faith leaders delivered a signed letter to Governor Holcomb opposing Mr. Corcoran's execution. We long to see the mercy, compassion, equity, and justice of God reflected in public policies that promote safety, human dignity, and healing for all Hoosiers, the faith leaders wrote. In a clemency letter, Mr. Corcoran's attorneys urged Governor Holcomb that the taking of Joe's life, especially during the Christmas season, rebukes the fundamental Christian belief that all people are worthy of redemption through God's grace and love. Yeah, that wasn't going to work. State Rep Bob Morris, a Republican representing the Fort Wayne area where Mr. Corcoran was sentenced, also joined the chorus opposing his execution. He said that he intends to introduce a death penalty abolition bill in 2025. In the 2025 session, based on his belief that only one position honors our Lord and Savior, our Creator, to protect all human life. On ya, Bob. On ya, Bob. Denied virtually every information request. Oh, here we go, guys. Now, this sounds like something that rings a bell. Indiana's refusal to allow journalists to witness the execution compounds the constitutional risks. Indiana is one of just 2 states, along with Wyoming, that entirely bars media access to executions. Ha! Shock, shock, shock. Yes, what a shocker. Mick Goose headphones. What a shocker. KO, you've been saying? Other states allow as many as 12 reporters to observe. Media presence is crucial because the media serves as the public's eyes and ears. Yeah, tell Judge Gull that. Documenting how the state is using taxpayer funds, well, yeah, that's not really top priority, I would think, and resources. In the past, media witnesses have played crucial roles in exposing botched executions. That's kind of important, even where state officials denied any problems. Okay, guys. People who live in states that have death penalty, what's the most important thing to you about having the media present at the execution? Is it that they don't misuse funds? Or is it that they're not like stabbing the person over and over again, getting it wrong, torturing them? Like, I'd be a bit more worried about what they're actually doing in that room than whether or not they're wasting the drug that they've spent a lot of money on. Personally, by then they've spent the money. But I mean, I get it. Like, people are upset about how much money it costs. Fine. I just think the whole thing's ridiculous, personally. You don't think the media needs to be there? It's both. The second one. There will be witnesses, just not media. Hey, but the witnesses are correctional facility staff, right? If something goes like wrong, like if there's some sort of cruel and unusual punishment, something happens that is egregious, Do you think they're going to say? Let's not waste death drug. And I feel like this is just part of the systemic culture of covering up that's going on here. And what we just saw happen with Richard Allen's trial and what we're seeing with the documents that aren't being released, this is just a symptom of something much larger that's going on. It seems fine in this state, in Indiana, to not provide the public with information, right? Like, why do we have a right to know? Other states, like Florida, for example, everything's out in the open. There's, like, transparency is part of the laws. But in this state, get stuffed? What do you need to know? That's our business. That's government business. Yeah, how many of the recent mess-ups in executions would we know about if it were up to the courts and law enforcement, right? Indiana journalist Nikki Kelly reported that IDOC had denied virtually every information request related to the execution, including how many vials were bought, what it cost, the expiration date. Other states have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on execution drugs in recent years from dubious sources such as overseas businessmen and compounding pharmacies with histories of health and safety violations. Ms. Kelly filed a complaint with the state's public access counselor to try to learn more about how Indiana obtained drugs after a 15-year effort, but was denied any information based on recent legislative changes that restrict the counselor's powers. Denied! The legislature tied the access counselor's hands behind his back, and Hoosiers have to instead file a lawsuit to get an answer. Really? It's clear Hoosiers won't know what the state of Indiana spent when Corcoran takes his last breath, Ms. Kelly wrote. Public access and transparency have taken a beating during the process to resume executions, and that hurts public confidence in the system. Well, there you go. Yeah, what else is new? I feel like these people only know just like a little bit of how much is being hidden. Like they've looked into this. I should try and request some court transcripts. I should try that. At a loss for words. Officials often describe executions as closure for the victim's family and justice system, but the people closest to the case oppose Mr. Corcoran's execution. His sister, Kelly Ernst, who was also the sister of one of the victims and engaged to another of the victims, said that his family wants a pardon. His family wants a pardon. And she and her twin sister will not attend the execution if it goes forward. Well, too late now. It's not going to provide closure for anyone involved, Miss Ernst said. He's mentally ill. I'm at a loss for words. I'm just really upset that they're doing it close to Christmas. My sister and I, our birthdays are in December. I mean, it just feels like it's going to ruin Christmas for the rest of our lives. That's just what it feels like, Kelly Ernst. Robert Givers, the elected prosecutor for Allen County at the time of the crime, personally obtained the death sentence against Mr. Corcoran, but says, if it were on my plate today, I probably would act differently. Times have changed. My own thinking has changed, Mr. Givers said. The death penalty is retribution. That's all it is. Saving someone's life is grace. So are we a society about retribution or grace? Isn't that interesting? The prosecutor said that. You want to know what Judge Gull said the day of the execution? Let me see. Do. The day of the execution. Ah, there it is. Allen's Superior Court Judge Francis C. Gull, who presided over Corcoran's 1999 trial. Hang on, I'll zoom this up. Oh, where did it go? Allen Superior Court Judge Francis C. Gull, who presided over Corcoran's 1999 trial and ultimately sentenced him to death, additionally weighed in. This is what she said, guys. State of Indiana versus Joseph E. Corcoran has come to the end, prescribed by Indiana law, found appropriate by a jury of the defendant's peers, and upheld repeatedly through the appellate process. Gull said in a statement following the execution, "My only thoughts today are with the families of those he was found guilty of murdering. I hope they find some measure of peace, knowing that his sentence has been carried out." What now? What now? What now? Hang on. Do you just want to go back a second and see what the families actually said about this? They said it's not going to provide closure for anyone. He's mentally ill. I'm at a loss for words. I'm just really upset that they're doing it close to Christmas. My sister and I, our birthdays are in December. I mean, it just feels like it's going to ruin Christmas for the rest of our lives. That's just what it feels like. His family wants a pardon. Yet Gull didn't even consider what the actual victims wanted. She just went, "Oh, well, my thoughts are with the families of those who he was found guilty of murdering." She couldn't even remember. Didn't even think to look into it. He's dead. He just died. And she's just like putting out there like an AI generated statement. Yeah. And 2 days later, she sentences Richard Allen to 130 years in prison. She had a great December. Great December. People dying and people being put into prison who were innocent and just, it's just Christmas. It's festive. Everything's great for Gull. There's people outside the prison, gathered outside Indiana State Prison on Tuesday, December 17th, in Michigan City, to oppose the death penalty and execution of Joseph Corcoran. Joseph's legal team, Joe, has felt for 27 years that he was tormented by the guards by an ultrasound machine. The machine sent out ultrasonic waves that infiltrated his mind to tell him what to do and inflicting excruciating pain. He wanted to escape prison and this torture. For attorneys, it is an uncomfortable place being at odds with your client. This is especially the case when your client is tortured by the symptoms of mental illness, not the ultrasound that he wholeheartedly believes was torturing him. This is even more so when realizing he could have avoided the death penalty altogether, but for the mental illness. But that would have required him to acknowledge his schizophrenia, and as an expert noticed, he would rather die than do that. That is exactly how the government was able to kill him. We stand resolute that permitting Joe's execution to proceed has done harm to the rule of law. The applicable legal standard for the United States Supreme Court were not followed, and the safeguards of our Constitution to protect the most vulnerable amongst us seemingly were ignored. The previous process of this state's courts was cast away in favor of a false sense of expedience. Thus, Indiana executed Joe, and the usual legal processes were never employed. It is disappointing that Indiana chose to restart executions in such an unfortunate manner a week before Christmas, a season intended for life and joy. We are mindful of the loss that so many families have endured, and the memories this event brings forth is what is otherwise a typically typically a happy holiday season. We express to them our deepest sympathies, and we hope that they continue to heal and find peace. Joseph Corcoran's legal team. See, Truth Seeker, I don't think Gull will be voted out next year. I'm sorry to say it, because there's so many people who believe that she did a good job. I mean, this isn't directly about her, but I mean, just look at people's points of view. Dude murdered his mum and dad and brother and a few other people. Such an evil, wicked person. He handed down several death sentences. Why should it even be a question that he gets any mercy? He cost Indiana a lot of money. He doesn't even deserve to be talked about. We need to get the process expedited. Way too long between crime and punishment. He's been sitting there draining tax dollars since 1999. 1997, what a disgrace that this piece of shit was kept alive and being paid for that long. Can't believe it took that long. 25 years, what a waste of taxpayer dollars. Keep the line moving. 15 years, 7 case reviews. We need to reform our criminal court system. Thanks, Governor Holcomb, for doing the right thing and not stopping justice from being done. You know he did it, yet he sits, eating, sleeping. Get medical care. Stop wasting time and using the prisons to get that money. This is what justice looks like. Not an ounce of remorse. So why did it take so long to get rid of him? Actually, he did have remorse. He did. He was so sorry. Kathy's daughter. I might have had my Kathy voice on there. Wait, baby shark voice. Where is Waller working? Has she come out to say why they fight her? I got no idea, guys. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows where Waller's working? Let's go protest. Well, I can't, but I can do a online protest. How did Britt cost them money? The state actively refused to pay his fucking lawyers, yeah. But he's sitting in prison costing them money. So... Oh, look, people do say things without knowing anything, but you know what? They also vote. They vote. Right? They vote. This is a problem. So... Like this Natalia Grace person says, not an ounce of remorse, so why did it take so long to get rid of him? No, he said he was so sorry. He actually had a ton of remorse. That should have been a mitigating factor. Right? So, she's got no idea what she's talking about, this person. So, always saw this as correctional officer that inmates always will carry a Bible around when they want to impress the staff that they had changed until you turned your back. Sad that this happened, but even sadder that the 4 victims are missing another Christmas with their families. Well, clearly you don't know that the victims want him to be pardoned. Right? He lived longer than the victims. Waste of tax money. This tax money thing just keeps coming up over and over again. You keep him in prison for the rest of his life. It actually costs less than all the litigation over the years. Right? Yeah. So anyway, I feel like there's probably more people out there who think that justice has been done and that Judge Gull probably did a good job than we think. And that's kind of scary and sad. And so I wouldn't be putting our eggs into any baskets that she's going to lose her next election. She could even be promoted. And that's sad. Sometimes, guys, we end up in like a bit of a bubble, and we talk to one another, and we hear the same things over and over again, and we agree with one another, but we don't look outside of that and see what other people are saying. And like the general normies, they just want criminals off the street. They hate criminals, and they just assume that the criminals are found guilty. And cool, criminal found guilty, put in prison. Awesome, done. Yay, good job. I'll elect you again. Yeah, I hate normies too. Dear. Alrighty. So that was interesting. Now, I found that just looking up a little bit of background on Gull. She's obviously presided over a lot of different cases. Prior to that, she was a prosecutor. funny that. Funny that. In the 80s and 90s. I'm digging up more. I want to know about whether she was an Eastern Star or connected, her family's connected to the Masonic Lodge. I want to know about that. That's what I'm really looking for. I'm here. What's this, Scott? I'm here, Hella. You can always argue with me. Oh, I argue with you anyway, Scott. You kind of sort of have to be a prosecutor to be a judge. Now, I don't think she ever was on the other side, though. Like, often they were on the other side as well. I don't think she was ever on the other side, but I could be wrong. She keeps things pretty tight to her chest. Like, her whole background is pretty shrouded in mystery. But I have avenues to go look for things for her. And it looks like T is live. Zachary Hughes rose petal trial. Yeah, okay. So we might go over to her. Any judge that calls a defendant an offender in front of a jury is a piece of shit. Oh, shit, yeah. Shit, yeah, offender. That's bullshit. You can't say that. Okay, you're not blocked. You're not blocked, love. I can see you. No, absolutely not. Okay, cool. All right. Oh, what's this? Sorry, you're getting jail calls for the rose petal trial. Ooh, fun. Oh, stay tuned for that. Ilya Dali, he's just my source of all the goss, source of all the juicy stuff. All right, guys, cool. We're going to go and raid Criminality. When you get into her chat, can you say hello, raid, for me? That would be really awesome. Thanks all for hanging out. Share the stream. Yeah, I'll probably see you tomorrow with some more things once I dig some more stuff up and maybe some jail calls. And make sure you subscribe to my co-host Dali Talk as well. Thank you, DB in chat, Ma'a, Judge Jessica, half Irish, John Common, and if I missed anybody, I'm really, really sorry. And it's time for the song. Time for the song.
Her name was Ella. She was an Aussie. She was a fake lawyer from the future. She got on YouTube and made some live streams. Her co-host is Donnie and she dances sometimes. The words are always so loud and because she's an 803. To be certain, excited.